All right, and can you pull up that, my hand back up?
And can the people viewing see the handout?
No.
No.
We're gonna have that set up.
Set up there.
You know, to see us staring at the screen.
There's just so many variables.
There are,
Saying this in.
which
Yeah,
is
it's
why
got a
we have
Okay.
a guru.
Okay, so hopefully you guys got those things written down. All right, so we did accountability as an authorized entity, as a board, as your agent. So different type of accountability. Her accountability is to you, your accountability is to SBCSD. We did the reason for existence. Now this dimension right here, I didn't actually add this until 2018. Oh, look at that, came back, okay.
Yay!
In 2018, I was reading a business article and I just had like one of those aha moments. You read something and go, that's the answer to the question. I hadn't even formulated the question. And it was kind of funny because by 2018, in Indiana, the law there says that to get your charter renewed, the authorizer has to separately evaluate the academic performance, the governance and operations, and the finance. So the finance is pretty well handled by like the accountant and the audits. The academic performance, they have people that specialize in that. But it was Ball State University. They didn't have anybody in-house. It was kind of a small shop. They didn't have any in-house employees that were experts at governance and operations. And so for years they contracted with me, and I would literally drive around. They'd give me a list at the start of the cycle, and I would literally go into school and evaluate the board and operations, and then I would write a big report. This is where it needs to improve, blah 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 blah. And I realized in 2018 I had been basically doing that intuitively. I wouldn't have been able to articulate. I could have told you what I was looking at when I was evaluating the board, but my intuitive drive to look at it, I couldn't have articulated other than like, well, that's what you should see. And then in 2018, I'm reading a business article and the guy's talking about lead indicators and lag indicators, and the light bulb just clicked on. Prior to that, I always thought of lead and lag as time markers. Like if it's a lead, it's earlier. If it's a lag, it's later. And there's a sense in which that's sort of right. But this author, and I wish I'd saved the article. I don't even know who I was reading. But the author pointed out that lead indicators are inputs and lag indicators are outcomes. And all of a sudden, my brain just went, ta-da! Like that glorious, oh, angels from heaven, right? Woo-hoo! And all of a sudden I realized that the stuff I've been evaluating for these boards all these years, I've basically been looking at the lead indicators, the inputs that tell me that make up good governance. There is no outcome for the board. For Sherry and for the school, the outcome is, the state report card, blah, 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 blah. And that's very much a lag indicator or an outcome. But for a board, I realized that when I read that article, like I could tell, and before I could even articulate it, I could look at what a board was doing and tell you whether it was functioning well just by looking at its inputs. You can't do that with management, with school management, because school management, you can see all the right inputs and still not get the grade. Very frustrating. All the right inputs. For 2 years in a row, running Vertus Academy, we did all the right inputs. We used research-based reading methods. We had a good solid in-service week where we brought in, heavy hitters that knew their topics. We rewrote the pacing guides. We rewrote the curriculum alignment documents. We had the PLCs. We had the vertical alignment. We had the frequent classroom observations and the informal feedback. All the inputs that you want to see, they're all there. And 2 years in a row, under my leadership, what's the level above? There's the bottom level, and then there's a level above that. What's that called?
What, in reference
The
to?
state report cards. There's the unsatisfactory. And then there's
Below average.
Below average.
below average. Yeah, 2 years in a row, below average. It's still a mystery to me to this day, because from an input standpoint, all I can tell you is we did all the right things. But schools and leaders don't get a passing grade on the inputs. The board does, but leaders don't. It's on the outcomes, right? So the key performance for an indicator, when I'm looking at a board, I'm looking at how well it provides oversight. Whereas when I'm looking at management, I'm looking at how well it produces the outcomes. And by now, you should recognize that shorthand for outcomes within parameters. It's not just outcomes untethered from anything. It's outcome within parameters, right? So let me show you if I can scroll. Will I be able to scroll this up?
No, but we have
No,
the
so they
handout.
said, when
Yeah, you have
when
the-
that button, it is a screenshot. It cannot, it
Okay.
is
It's
just
a
an
picture.
image. Yep. I know it's a great tool, but yeah, I wish they,
Yeah, so you got
Yeah.
the handout. So just a quick look at these. So you say, okay, so you're evaluating the board. You got to make a recommendation about the renewal of their charter. So what was I looking at? This is before I could articulate that I realized that I was looking at inputs. And it was that article that made me realize, like, oh, it's totally okay to look at inputs for the board. So I would look, and some of these words might start to seem like you feel like I've seen this somewhere else in your materials. I first look at the extent to which the board is functioning as a collective versus functioning as a collection. Does it prohibit individual board members from using board authority as their own? I don't think you have any of this kind of board member. If you did, I wouldn't use this as an example. I think Sherry would have told me, but there's some board members that have nowhere else to be during the day. And so where are they?
All
At the
up in your
school.
business.
In the hallway, gathering intel. So I'll pretend I'm a board member and you guys are teachers in the school. So it's the middle of the school day. Hi, Clay. I'm Dr. Carpenter. I'm on the board of directors. It's so nice to meet you. What grade do you teach?
Third.
Third. How long have you been here with Coastal?
That's what you need in passing.
I
Instead of
know.
going to the
What
bathroom.
do you think of our leader?
She's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Dr. Carpenter. How have you been at Coastal?
Oh, I'm new. I just,
Awesome. What do you think of our school?
I think it's fantastic. It's a dream come true.
What do you think of our principal? You know,
She's
you work with-
wonderful.
Yeah.
She's
Hey,
wonderful.
hi. Hi, Emily. I'm Dr. Carpenter, right? So they go through the whole school all week long doing this, and then this is what happens. And I can do this because I have seen it happen. I wish I had a video recording. I've seen it happen. You get into a board meeting, and the board chair hasn't taken the time to learn proper parliamentary procedure. As in, when you get to the end of the agenda, the chair should say, "We've now concluded our agenda. The meeting is adjourned." That's the proper procedure. Instead, the chair will say, "Oh, I see we've reached all of our agenda items. Does anybody have anything else?" Which, if you think about it, is the intellectual equivalent of saying, "We're now going to make this free for all. Who would like to go first?" And then I've been at the school, so people are so sophisticated. I love watching people. This board member, they'll look around at the other board members like, "Well, do you want to go first? Because I don't need to go first. If you want to go first, you." And then nobody goes first because they all have jobs, right? I'm the one that's been at the school. And they'll raise their hand, "Well, yes, I have a concern," right? A concern. That sounds so polite. I have a concern, right? It does. To the ear, it sounds a lot better than "I've been sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, and I'm now about to give a report." And say, "I have a concern." And then they'll say this: "I've been up at the school a few times since the last board meeting. The principal's been sitting over there going, 'God, don't I know it,' right?" And then they'll say, "And I've been talking with a few of our better teachers, and there's a concern among them," and then fill in the blank, right? The principal doesn't listen, the principal is an ogre, the principal is where it doesn't, match their socks to their trout, whatever, And but why do they always precede it with, and they say, by the way, they've been talking with a few of our better teachers. Of course, they need to remain anonymous because this will send to me in confidence. Right? So why do they preface their remarks with, "I've been talking with a few of our better teachers"? Why that important preface?
Because better teachers are the ones that agree with you and stood there and talked to you instead of using the restroom.
Right, if they said, I've been talking to the bottom 10% of our performers, the board would be like, who cares what they think? I'm hoping they don't come back, right? If I say the better teachers, like, we don't want our better teachers to leave. And then they lay out whatever it is the concern is. By the way, it's usually really poorly defined. It's usually very vague. It's never like a specific thing. It's like this vague, amorphous, hard contours are where seems like there's a concern that our staff don't feel like the principal listens to them. Okay, what does that mean? What staff? Under what conditions? Was it a meeting? Was it an individual meeting? Did they go to the principal? Like, what does that mean? Well, I don't know, but it was said to me in confidence. And then they say this. So I'm just wondering if we as the board need to say something about this. Right now, Madam Chair, here's the proper parliamentary procedure. If you that question, I'm just wondering, and I want you to rehearse it so that you have it as a behavior, right? So here's the proper parliamentary procedure. No.
Is it on the agenda?
Meeting adjourned. Yes. But it's not, because they get to the end of the agenda and they say, does anybody have anything else? And that's when they slide this in.
For the good of the board.
If you do that 3 times, they'll stop doing it. They'll stop doing it.
No, it's a complete sentence.
Yeah, no is a complete sentence. It's actually one of my favorite. No. And you can say it with all kinds of expression, and convey like a difference, a nuance in meaning by expression. No. 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 Right? It's a complete sentence. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing. You all have kids, right? You've done it, right? It's easy. Everybody say it with me. No.
No.
So if this happens in a board meeting, I'm just wondering if we need to talk about it. No. Next item of business. In fact, if you want to get all Robert Rulesy on me, to deviate from the agenda requires a super majority vote of the board. It's not just a majority, it's a super majority of the board. You can say, I move to, I can't think of the parliamentary procedure, but there's a motion and it's basically saying, okay, I move that we talk about this even though it was on the agenda. Okay, sometimes there might be a need for that, but that requires a super majority, like 2/3 or 3/4 of the board to approve it. So there you go. And that scenario I just laid out to you, I'm not kidding you. For 21 years, I have seen that played out. I'm sitting in the room. They've had board training from me, and they do this. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, right? And, you just have to, but Rita, I think you strike me as someone who can say no. Like you seem like that kind of person.
Process.
Yeah. Like, no.
No.
Now, people say, well, why do they end the meetings like that? Well, if you look at Robert's rules, there is a thing called good of the order as the last thing. But I guarantee you when Colonel Robert, his name was Henry M. Robert, he was from Jasper County, South Carolina, self-published Robert's Rules in the first edition around 1886. I guarantee you that Colonel Henry wasn't envisioning, I've been talking to a few of our, he wasn't envisioning that under good of the order. Good of the order is like, I think it's awesome. Every time I come up into the building, the kids seem so happy. That's a good of the order, right? I think it's awesome every time I come up here, or like in this case, I think it's so awesome. Did you all see your new sign that was mounted this week? Yep, I made it happen. No. Right? So you're like, oh, I'm so excited that we got our new sign up. That's good of the order. It's not, the rest of that. All right. The board, so what else am I looking at when I evaluate boards? Obviously, the idea of sharing this with you is for you to think about your own board. I looked to see if the board's minutes document that it was actually providing oversight of management by asking what I call oversight-informed questions, or how well questions, right? Now, most board training, and if you stay on this board long enough, and it may have already happened to you, you go to an association event, some doofus will be presenting a workshop on governance, and he'll stand up and say, the board should ask questions. That's right up there with stay in your lanes. Where's the lanes? I don't know, right? So the board should ask questions. So you get into a board meeting, and this board member's heard, oh, I'm supposed to ask questions, right? So then they're like, Did we get this paper at Kinko's or Office Depot? Because my sister's brother's cousin's nephew works at Office Max, and we can save some money on it, right? Because they went to a workshop, some dork said, ask questions. No, ask oversight informed questions. You say, can you give us an example? I'll give you two at the macro level. How well, there it is, how well are the kids achieving the outcomes that we were chartered to produce or contracted to produce for them? Not how well are we delivering it, how well are they achieving it? And how well are we operating within all of the required parameters? Financial being a really big one, and fraud risk management being a really big parameter, right? How well are we doing on that? Are we delinquent? Were we supposed to send a report and we didn't get it in on time, or whatever, right? All right, enterprise risk management. This is one that I added in 2025. Now, I ordered copies. I've written 4 books. This one is on enterprise risk management for church schools. I've ordered copies for all of you. They've not arrived yet. They'll get here to the school in a week or 2, but there's a copy of this.
Thank you.
So if you have no life, you will love this. If you have any life, try to squeeze it in here or there. I wrote that book in 2021, and in 2025, I think a lot about risk management because there's just so much risk exposure, right? You think about it, you got hundreds of kids, dozens of vehicles, myriads of employees, facilities, money. There's just risk everywhere you turn. Slip and fall to car accident to theft to, food poisoning, if there's a cafeteria. I mean, it's just endless, right? We were out here with the food truck on Thursday, and the wind snapped it, right? An umbrella off one of the tables out there. It was so windy, it just picked it up and sucker was airborne. That's risk, right? Somebody gets clobbered in the head. I was showing Sherry a photo, and if I get around to writing a second edition of this, which I'm not sure I will, this photo is going to the book, but a school, unnamed, I was doing a walk around, and I'm out by the playground, and not 30 feet from the elementary playground, I stop, and I don't know if you've ever seen or paid attention to, but like if there's no blacktop, and but if you have to have drainage for the land, the way they accommodate the drainage is they put like this big cement 2x2 sort of pad, but the pad's a little bit elevated, and then the water flows into the drainage thing. And they put a silt fence around the bottom of it to keep like big garbage from going down into the runoff. So the contractor for this school had put one of these drainage covers 30 feet from the elementary playground. So hundreds of kids every day, 30 feet away, chasing balls, doing what they do, no fence between them and this drainage cover. What really caught my, right, as in doing a header into a cement block. If you think that was a new, Dr. Martin, wait till you hear this. And I have a photo of it. So that's a new by itself, right? What caught my eye wasn't that. What caught my eye was the 2.5-foot rebar posts protruding from each corner, holding the silt fence into place.
Right. Oh, no.
What does that sound like?
Chest injuries.
That sounds like death.
Yeah. Blindness.
I told the maintenance supervisor, I said, I want this out. It wasn't the only place on the property. There was 1 or 2 spots. I want to rebar out before any maintenance people go home today. And I heard through the grapevine, like, who that Dr. Carpenter does he think he is? Yeah. Accidental death from a student being impaled on the piece of rebar. What a jerk, right? On Friday of that week, remember my Google alerts? On Friday of that very week, a Google alert popped up, state of Washington, a high school student killed playing soccer in a gym at school during school hours, properly supervised. Check. What happened? You know those portable soccer nets that they use?
Yeah.
And they have the aluminum, crossbars or whatever. A piece of it was broken, and I think it was like a piece like this was exposed, and the boy instantly killed himself when he accidentally ran into it and impaled himself right through the eye. Dead right now. The saddest part of it, I mean, the parent, the parents are never gonna be able to put that grief behind them. The saddest part of it is, as a school leader, I look at that and I say, that was 100% foreseeable, which means it was preventable. You don't have to be a risk management expert to walk around the school and look at broken stuff and say, someone could get hurt on that. And the rebar, I'll never get over that. I need to get it into a book. Just stick it straight up, like half-inch rebar, like you're not gonna bend it. If a child, even an adult falls on it, you're not bending that rebar, you're going straight through. Oversight and form questions. I don't know how we got on the rebar from oversight and form questions.
Risk.
Risk, yeah. The board demonstrates accountability as an authorized entity. The board's composition and actions demonstrates that it understands it's the legal owner of the school and makes decisions accordingly. For example, it's independent from management in its composition, its business associates, and decision-making that benefits management companies, not abrogating, i.e. dumping board responsibilities on the management, such as auditor selection. That's your job you might know this, that's your job to pick the auditor. You don't tell Sherry to pick the auditor. Here's the thing. I have the skill set to steal money and keep it hidden from you, probably for a long time. Could probably pull it off for at least 6 years. You'll never spot it. And if I'm doing that, if I'm your CEO and I'm doing that, and you say, Brian, would you go find an auditor for us? I'm going to say, what am I going to say?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then I'm going to very carefully look around and find a grapefruit with a CPA behind his name, and I'm going to hire the grapefruit. And he'll do the audit. And I will subtly make him aware that if I don't like the audit results, he isn't going to do the audit for us again. I can do that subtly to where you can't pin it on me, but I can make it aware, like, I need to be pleased, as in no management letter items, or you won't be doing our audit again. What does every junior auditor want?
Recurring customer?
Work.
Right.
To be a senior auditor,
Yeah.
to be a senior auditor, and to be a senior auditor, you need recurring customers. That's exactly right. Right? Now some of them have, a lot of them have integrity, and they're gonna be like, oh, okay, but most people are gonna bend the pressure. So that's why it's the job. And in the board, and in South Carolina, they've taken a step further. You can only select an auditor off the approved list of the Department of Ed. In other words, the legislature realized there are grapefruits out there with auditing credentials. They do exist. So the legislature some while back said, all right, only auditors off this list are the ones that you can use, because they're companies and individuals going out hiring grapefruits with CPA credentials. All right, the board, number 5, the board documents regular receipt of an income statement and a balance sheet. And underline the last part of the sentence and pass this along to Grant is your treasurer,
Nancy.
or Nancy's your treasurer, but not here, right? Reviews source documents such as bank statements. And Sherry and I talked about that. We're not going to get into all the wherefores, but there's been some problems with that. I think those problems are now solved, and it'll be no problem for your treasurer to get those. But kudos to her for asking for them. That's how you catch fraud. That's where you see, like, wait, Carnival Cruise Lines? What did we buy from them? Yeah. The Georgia case, the $1.2 million, the association, and I knew the association leader, and when that thing hit the newspaper, he was like, oh, well, it's very unfortunate, but for volunteer board, there's no way for them to really catch that. And it was on an online forum, and I was like, yeah, actually there is. Read the bank statements. Look at the bank statements. The guy was using the debit card. He made when the AJC investigated, to write the story, he made $2,000 worth of withdrawals on a single occasion one night at a strip club. That's going to show up on your bank statement. It's there. It's right there.
In a school account.
Yeah. And really, and I've said this to schools for years, and you guys are already practicing this, don't even have debit cards, because the audit trail ends when the cash comes out. That's the end of the audit trail, unless they provide receipts. Have a petty cash for, small cash expenses, but have credit cards, because credit cards don't give employees unlimited access to your $1.1 million in your sweep account. credit cards have a limit of liability, which you can actually set to each card, right? So in my last school, my CO had a card and I set her limit at about $25,000. My maintenance guy had a credit card. I set his limit at about $5,000 because they had different purchasing needs in front of them. And so that's the limit of liability. I'm going to catch it if they're doing something with it they shouldn't be doing. I'm going to catch it when it hits the $25,000 mark, not when I open up the bank statement and realize that $750,000 got shifted to an account in Grand Cayman Islands and the COO has been absent for a week and nobody knows where. I had this school in Hawaii, and I've been over there a few times, and I had the school leader, just was a great gal. She was a founder, and I'd see her at a stateside conference, and she'd always be like, "Brian, we got to get you over to do board training." I'm like, "Yes, you do. Yes, you really do." But she was always like, "We don't have any money in." I'm like, "Well, how big is your school?" They were a small school, a couple hundred kids, and I'm like, "Well, okay, we'll try to maybe set some aside, but I'll give you a deal or something." And like if your school's in Hawaii and you call me in February, you'd be surprised how cheap I'll come. So she calls me one day. This is going back. I see her conference every year. This is going on for like 3 or 4 years. She calls me one day, and she goes, "Well, I figured out why we didn't have any money for board training." And I said, "What's that?" She said, "Well, I wasn't allowed to say anything before now because the court had a gag order on it. But my business manager was just convicted of stealing $660,000 from the school."
I don't think you're gonna get away with that.
She did get away with it. She went like for 6 or 8 years without the auditors catching it.
Wow.
And here's how she was doing it, right? Like as a fraud investigator, I'm like, "How'd you do it? How'd you do it?" Right? Here's how she did it. It's actually pretty slick, not real sophisticated. You hear these things, it's like, "Ooh, that must be some like super sophisticated." But no. So, school is processing payables. Now, by the way, the risk of that happening at a school like CHS is way, it's not impossible, but it's way, way reduced because you outsource your ledger work to an outside company. So that gives the board some peace of mind.
Who is really good.
Who's really good. Yeah, they do a good job. So anyway, they were doing it in the house, which nothing wrong with that if you've got the people. And so the way she was doing it was the school had a Visa card. Business manager lady had a Visa card, her own personal Visa card. And so she would just prepare in a given week, she'd just prepare 20 or 30 payables going out the door, put a spreadsheet together, and she'd just say Visa card and whatever, put it on the school leader's desk. Will you approve these payables? School leader's busy. They are a bit crazy busy. Okay, I don't see anything. You have a Visa card? Yeah, we have a Visa card. And she and Susie approved it.
I have a question.
Yeah,
And I should know this answer, and I don't.
that's okay.
Do we at CHS have a program like in Burris or something where you have to get your expenses if you're going to spend over like $500 pre-approved, and then you have 10 days to get those receipts in? Do we have that system here?
Your policy isn't quite that refined, but one of the things I'm going to be helping Sherry with is actually articulating more beefed up policies. One thing Sherry can do is, and I think on some level she does this, but I think realizing she's really in more of an executive director role, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. It's really it behooves her to personally log on, look at the credit card activity for all employees on a regular basis. So they're not using their school credit card for stuff. In this case, though, what the lady was doing, she was sliding in her own Visa payment into a stack of payables. It just kind of blended in because the school had a Visa card. The school didn't realize, like, oh, that's not one of our cards. $660,000.
Okay, I'm processing.
So the prize for that, by the way, she won the grand prize, 10 years in federal penitentiary stateside, which is very difficult if you live in the islands. It's very hard on our family, stateside, 10 years in federal pen. That was the grand prize for 660. Luckily for the school, the state of Hawaii treats charter schools as a public entity, and the state made them whole. The state gave them the money back. That doesn't happen in South Carolina. If it didn't happen there, they'd have gone out of business.
Yeah.
They'd have gone out of business. So
You went for training after that, right? Did you go train?
They hired me to train them, and then we had a Zoom meeting, and I made them all mad because of something that happened subsequently. And I basically said to the board, "Why are you allowing this?" And it offended them, and they never followed through and said, "Okay, we'll come with the rest of the training."
Wow.
They had paid me to come, so
That's foolish.
a friend. Here's how I look at it: a friend tells you the truth, even if you don't want to hear it.
Yep.
So they just didn't want to hear it. All right, the board recognizes enterprise risk management, ethical tone at the top through an enforced code of conduct. And the board to make sure that management has robust financial controls and that they're being followed both by the board and management. So enterprise risk management, the board's role is to set expectations, and I'll define that in just a moment. And Sherry's job is to systematize safeguards. It's actually Sherry's job to write the financial controls. And your attorney, by the way, agrees with me on this. And it's not every day I meet an attorney that understands this, but you have these boards approving policies. Let's be honest with each other. The only way, if you hand a board member a stack of policies, the only people that are going to read them are the crazy people, right? Normal people don't do that. You hand a crazy person a stack of policies, they'll read them. And so you say, "Can I get a motion to approve the handbook?" And the crazy person will have read it and they'll be like, "Oh yes, I noticed that we used a semicolon on page 16 when really a comma would have been more appropriate, right?" Like something is wrong with them, right? Most people don't, especially, there's some things that we just have to do in life, right? So when the university hired me to run the National Charter Schools Institute, they were selling this policy manual, and it was written by people who knew what they were writing, but it was like this prefabricated policy manual. I'm not kidding you. I have a picture of it. It was like that thick. And then we would sell it to these schools for like $5,000. And then, we would have one meeting with a committee of the board where we would go through the policies to tailor them, right? So picture that, right? You're going to make it to about page 12, and the normal people go, "I can't take this anymore," right? But you go into a board meeting and the board says, okay, the chair says, "All right, we have this policy manual, we're purchasing it from the National Charter Schools Institute. Can I give a motion to approve the manual?" Someone goes, "Yes, so moved." Second, any discussion? Blah, blah, blah. Vote, approved, boom. You just obligated, by law, the school to follow every comma and semicolon in that policy manual. You've just obligated yourselves and the school. And here's what's going to happen when you get sued. Not if you get sued, when you get sued. The attorney for the plaintiff, which I would never work for, he's going to put you in a chair, Jill, swear you in. So Julie, so you're on the board, yes, and try to put you at ease with some questions, kind of walk you into a wall is what they're trying to do. They say, "We're on the board when the night that the policy manual was approved," and she would say, "Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was a year ago or something. But yeah, I think so. Okay." And he'll say, "Well, let's just make sure. Here's the minutes from that night. It shows that you were in attendance and it was a unanimous vote." And Jill's like, "Okay." And then he's going to say this. Now, he knows this is an absurd question. He knows that only crazy people will read a policy manual that thick, and it's terrible reading. I mean, these are written by, usually by a committee of, third graders. Like, it's just terrible, right? He'll say, "So, have you read the policy manual?" Now, you're under oath. She's got to say no, right? And so now he's got a no out of your mouth. And then he's going to say, "Well, no, Jill, I'm confused. I'm sorry, it's a formal." He's going to say, "Director," you say Nierenstein? Nierenstein.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to say, it'll be formal. He'll say, "Well, now, Director Nierenstein, so help me understand, why did you approve a manual that you hadn't read?" Game over. How do you answer that question, right? There's and they know they're asking a ridiculous question, right? They know nobody reads it. A crazy person will read it. Like, I've been in board meetings and some, Bob comes in, and he's got it under its arm, with 4,000 like sticky notes under there, and flop it down on the table, and the board say, all right, can we get a motion to approve the policy manual? Bob will say, well, I have a few questions, and then he starts with but those people are weird. Like there's something diagnostically wrong. There's something in the DSM-5 that covers that. I don't know what it is, but there's something wrong. That's not normal behavior. Just saying. But you approve it as a board. And so I've said to attorneys for years, like, I think it's bad advice to tell boards to approve policy manuals. Plus, the risk management literature on organizational risk management is pretty universal in saying that it's management's role to write and implement policies. And then if the board is called in for an appeal about something, was it fair, was it followed, then you are in fact objective because you didn't approve the policy. Then you can say, yeah, no, I don't think that is a fair policy, right? Whatever it is. And Mary agrees with me on this. Not every attorney does. Now, I don't know what SPCSD's current policy is, but I'm guessing that if I read your charter contract, there's language in there that says you must approve school policies. So you can do it, probably because you have to do it. But realize that the doing of it is really not true governance. It's just sort of these motions that we go through because nobody takes the time to stop and think about it. But now Sherry's job is to systematize the safeguards. You say, well, Brian, what kind of expectations should we set? And this is why I'm going to be sending you, I have to edit that a little bit, so it's actually different than the version I gave to Sherry, but this is why I'm going to send you a job description for her that I'm going to recommend that you adopt, and it includes the expectation that she systematize the safeguards, starting with something she has now completed, and that is performing an annual risk management assessment. What is that? It's just stepping back and taking a global look at all the risks that you can identify to people, property, and programs. And then you say, okay, what are we doing to keep this from happening or mitigate this? You give it a numerical value. And then you say, is there more that we could do? And if there is, what could we do? Sometimes you just have something's high, if you have tackle football, okay, we have equipment, we have a trainer, we have first aid, but there's still a risk when those kids get out there on the field, right? You can get hurt. So, but we accept that risk because we want to play football. So some risks are like that. You do what you can do for it, and then it's called the residual risk, and that's the amount of risk that's left after you've done everything you can do to mitigate it. And so Sherry and I, this week, we literally gave a numerical value to 75 risks that I've written in my book, they're in the book, that are common to charter schools, and then looked at what is she doing and what can she do. And so now we've actually created what's called a heat map. So if you just picture a scatter plot in your head, on the vertical axis we have probability, and on the horizontal axis impact. If it were to happen, how bad could it be? And so she has a visual depiction, basically a scatter plot, and she knows what risks that she has to attend to. And it really should be an annual thing. Like you should pull it out once a year, get your team together. Now she and I basically did it just for the sake of time and expediency, just did it by ourselves. But next year she's going to want to get a team together, and you get your IT person, right? Your IT expert, because there's risks with cyber stuff. You get your financial person because there's risks with money. When you get an SRO, keep your fingers crossed, it'll come through eventually. There's physical risks to kids and all the stuff reasons we have SRO, right? So you get the experts together, and then you can really start having a drill down conversation on where can we further reduce our risk exposure. Like there's something else we can do. There's no such thing as a zero risk school. It doesn't exist. You're not going to be the first to create it. It doesn't exist. The goal is to basically minimize your risks for the stuff that is reasonably foreseeable. Like you don't have to be a genius to figure it out. When I see rebar sticking up 2 feet out of the ground, 20 feet from an elementary playground, I'm like, I'm not a genius, but I think that's dangerous. And the death of the student at that high school wouldn't happen on my watch because I would have taken one look at that broken soccer thing and said, get that out of here now. Which is like no, but with a W. Now. You ever see Everybody Loves Raymond where he has his cousin in the basement? Now, right now. Love that. All right, that is the CHAMPS model. And so when I say the board should stay in its lane, that is the lane lines. You guys want to take a break and then we'll look at some survey results?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Any questions? Comments, insults? If you have compliments, please write them on back before you go.
You're always like, oh, Sam has a question.
No, we want you to ask me questions.
Okay, so if I want to, what do I have to do to
You don't
pull up the
need
next
anything?
thing?
Yeah, so you said it's really weird because I didn't discover this until like 2 weeks of using it. That literally, when you hit that button, it just takes a screenshot. So if that's going on in the background, it just brings the image.
Okay.
So I have like if you wanted to save this,
Yeah.
it's not going to come back up, but it'll save it as an image. Right.
Where's the drive where it's saved?
It's on here, so I'd have to get a flash drive, or you could do it through
Oh,
USB.
okay,
But
okay.
then, and
So
again,
it's not on my drive, it's not on my
no,
computer's drive?
no. I love these. I call them Team smartboards. They're really good. There's little things why, like the Prometheans are like $5,000.
Right.
Little things
Right.
like I guarantee that doesn't matter. But these work 90.
Well, that kind of surprised me because I've used Smartboard, I've used Prometheans, and I'm like,
And
surely.
you scroll, I know. And I was sitting there trying to scroll. First time I did, I'm like, where's one? And what I noticed is then I'm sitting there like, why is that different? And I realized that it literally just freezes, it takes a screenshot and you're marking it. So there used to be, in the year of COVID, I discovered there used to be an extension for the Chrome browser called Web Paint. Best thing ever. I don't know why they discontinued it. But you could just click the extension. You could mark anything up. You could scroll. You could take it away and bring it back.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I'm sure there's other ones out there. I haven't.
Sometimes when I present remotely, I just write on my iPad,
Yep.
like in the Zoom window, I just write on it, and then they can see it displayed on my end. and then
See,
I
if we
just-
were doing like an actual video conference, yeah, Zoom, Google Meet, all that stuff is great.
Y'all know something I don't.
Husband's really doing this year. He loves his, the group that gets together one or 2 days after school. Oh, yeah. He's always the most energetic. He's literally like jumping. I know, you know.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Oh,
Were you guys learning anything?
this
Yes.
is very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, you're a very fun presenter.
thank you.
Yeah.
I figure if you're gonna lecture people on governance on a Saturday, you better make it fun. Like, it's a terrible topic to begin with, and it's a Saturday.
I find it interesting.
Good deal, good deal. You have kids here, Jill?
I do. One
Okay.
of my daughters comes
Okay.
here. And,
Awesome.
she's very happy with the school. It's
Good.
wonderful for her.
Good. How many kids do you have?
3.
Okay, and are they all here, or
No.
just the one?
Just one.
Okay.
One of my
And what do you do in your other life when you're not on the board?
I'm a nurse.
Okay.
I'm an LPN.
Okay,
So, yeah, I understand.
That
the
would
risk-
not be
the
for
risk-
me.
The risk management,
oh, yeah, yeah, in the medical profession,
yeah.
yeah,
Education and healthcare are a lot of similarities.
yeah,
Yeah.
documenting,
Yeah.
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 If it ain't writ, it's just spit.
If it wasn't written, it wasn't said.
Yeah, if it doesn't get written down, it didn't happen.
Right, yeah. So this is great.
Good.
I'm enjoying the way that you're presenting.
Glad you think so.
Why is it so much colder on this?
I don't know. Maybe it's like a draft.
Well, I had to lose my sweater because I'm up there doing calisthenics, so I'm starting to sweat.
Yeah, well, when you're presenting, it takes a lot. So you wrote a number of books.
Yeah, 4 so far, and I'm working on book number 5.
I've seen a couple of them
Oh, have you?
on Amazon.
Awesome.
Yes, and I was like, oh, there's not too many books about charter school governance.
Right?
So,
That's called a business opportunity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm writing my 5th book, which I've given chapter 1 to Sherry, and I've written chapters 2 and 3. My 5th book is going to be for charter school leaders
Right,
because
Francis
most of what I've
Smart
written
House
is
is
for
the one.
boards, but now it's time for me to
But
focus
I
on
don't-
That's-
there's not a free
leaders
version.
understanding
There's not a free version of
their
anything.
role and their
They're all-
responsibility.
it's
that's
per-
like- that's
There's
another
e-hall
way,
pass,
because
there's
a
smart
ton-
pass. Technically, the Go Guardian we use for a bunch
Right,
of stuff, they have
right.
their own version.
Yeah,
It all ends up, it's not expensive, it's a couple of bucks.
There really isn't.
But it's
There
very
really
year, so.
I'd also
The-
like
the
to write
biggest
one on
thing is
board
it-
financial
it-
oversight, but
it
for the time being, I
works.
gave you all what I call a monograph. That's the follow the money thing. So at the time, it's just a monograph, but eventually I may make that into a
Something that I
book.
think would just be
Yeah,
like,
that could be
it's too
a book
much
in
work.
itself,
I
for
Yeah.
sure.
forgot that.
And especially in the
It
charter
only works
school
if you
world,
use it.
Yeah.
whew, the stuff I run
Well,
into.
that's what
And I have things like, I ask teachers not to send, I ask teachers not to just randomly send students down. I ask them,
Well,
who
this
is
is,
it? I have
yeah,
at least
thank
5
you
to
for
10
this.
students
Yeah,
every
you're
day
welcome.
show up at my door, my charger doesn't work, my Chromebook's not working,
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of class, and I'm like, please go back, tell your teacher to email me or call me.
yeah.
And I said, so I'm like,
So we have a, we have to do a ticket on a Google form if there's a kid device program problem. They have to just submit it, the
Yeah,
teacher has to,
yeah.
or send an email.
and I feel like to a certain extent, when we get bigger, yes, I will probably do that. Like, I had a tech document at the beginning of the year,
Yeah,
but
that's what we have.
now it's just all you have to do before you say, hey, go see, call the phone. Because I'll just simply say, yep, give me 5 minutes, or go ahead. If it's just like, hey, their charger broke, great, I'll give them the charger.
Yeah.
But when they just pop, knock, 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 knock,
Yeah,
knock,
that's
knock,
normal.
every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And the students know. Last year got so bad, the students literally would like, they'd just be expecting, like, I know we're not getting 10 minutes in, someone's gonna knock at the door. We're not getting through this lesson, I'm good, whatever.
Yeah,
You know somebody's gonna knock at that door in 2 minutes,
yeah.
so they know that the expectation is then that I'm going to give it a ride.
Right.
Plus, I tell them, like, 3rd block, I don't care. 3rd block, I have planning now. Just send them down. You don't need to call 3rd block. Send them on down, I'll get the Chromebook fixed, whatever you need.
Right.
But, it's just like, and some of the students are like, oh, well, I just came down. I'm like, so then it's like, whose class are you? Oh, so-and-so's. Why don't they recognize that you are, so the hall pass thing, where do you need to go?
Yeah,
And the nice thing about it is they could say, pass request, and it would send me a request. And then I could say,
Oh.
yeah.
or please wait 15
Oh,
minutes.
Is it easy? What do you guys call it here?
Well, there's tons of them. It
Okay.
should, they're all the same.
Yeah, we
They're
used to
all the
have
same.
that.
Like I said, there's
That was-
e-hall pass, there's smart pass,
I
there's
did
ED
e-hall
pass.
That's what we had.
There's,
Oh,
so,
I love
yeah,
that.
like I said.
I tell the teachers started getting
Oh.
mad about using it.
No, our teachers
So-
were good with it, but I loved how I could block kids from being in the hallway at the
Yeah,
same time.
exactly.
Because let
Like-
me tell you, I know so and so is dating.
And
Guess
you know-
what? Y'all can never be in the hall at the same
For
time.
years.
Sorry.
For years, I always said, like, I don't want to be Big Brother. And I firmly have passed, like, it's not what it is anymore.
Yeah.
It is just a matter of, okay, like 95% of the time, there's not going to be an issue. It just enables us to, it's data.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, if I wanted
Uh-huh.
to, so one of the things I joke with my students about when we get the statistics, it's like, do you think that the amount of time you spend out of the classroom correlates positively or negatively
Yeah.
with the
Yes.
grade of
Yep,
the class?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I could
Oh,
literally,
it's
I
great for
could,
parent-teacher
I could
conferences,
literally
too.
be like,
Yeah, it
this,
is.
in over 9 weeks, your student was out of my classroom for 372 minutes or
And
whatever.
I would
And that's why their
intentionally-
grade is A.
And I would intentionally tell some teachers
Yeah.
who would start complaining, like, well, so-and-so's already been out a bunch of times. Perfect. Never tell them no, because then when we
Yeah.
have a conference with that parent,
Yeah.
we can say,
Yeah.
like, this is how often your
Yes,
child has,
yes.
has asked to
Well,
go out of
and it's
class.
how
This
long.
is how long
It's
they've
like,
been out of
exactly,
class each
like,
time.
I can
Yes.
tell you, like I said,
Oh,
for
I
me, I'm
love
like,
that.
cool, come on in, let's walk this path.
Mhm.
Let's walk, okay. Great, let's walk the class. That was 4 minutes,
Mhm.
average 12 and a half. Like,
Yep.
so,
Yeah.
and like I said, to me, that is not a Big Brother. It's fairly a data thing.
Oh, yeah.
It
And
is.
I'm such a data nerd lately because I'm like, okay, I want to cover my butt.
Oh,
So, hey,
100%.
and that's where, I had a parent reach out the other day because not and concerned, they're just, hey, here's what happened because their student got a 0. And in the comments, I said, student Googled answers / academic dishonesty. They were saying, what happened? I'm like, I mean, he basically, browsing history popped up. It was like literally copying and pasting. I was like, they can redo it.
Yeah.
But that data, because if they're like, so I'd never do that. Well, here's the browsing history. That's
I
exactly what
used to,
they
this
did.
one mom, I was like,
And
please follow your child. But I also I remember I would show her him on the camera, and I would say, just watch him.
Yeah.
Like, I could, because there's no other student, he's the only student in the hallway. So there's
Exactly,
nothing for
right?
me to like, have to like, do anything, I don't need any special requests.
It's
Watch
like,
him at his locker.
You think
What
the
is he
camera,
doing?
you think the camera was frozen right now, but no, he stood still for 10 minutes.
Yes.
You
Like,
see how he's walking?
He
That's
shouldn't
why
move.
he's late to every single class. That's why. That's why he has detention
that's
again.
fun, yeah.
Like, it's, I mean, goodness.
Yeah.
To me as a parent, I'm wondering, why is my child doing that? Is
Yeah.
it because they're not understanding the material? Is there a
Yep.
learning gap?
Because, yeah, and
And
you
they
do,
don't want to
like,
be embarrassed by not knowing the answer when we're going around, so they.
I mean, I have students, I know that once we start getting into hex, they're probably like,
Yep.
oh, I gotta, but I also tell mine, I'm like, you need, if that's what you do, it's fine, but then afterwards you'll be like, hey, I messed up, it's because that was just hurting my head. Great, then what you need to do is you need to come see me during third block, or you need to stay for academic assistance, because I'm fine with that, right? I have times where I'm like, my brain's just not doing this, right?
Yeah.
I play board games a lot, and my friend loves these big, chunky, heavy, thinky games. And I joke with him all the time. I'm like, dude, I can do it on the weekend. You try to get me to play one of those on a Wednesday night, I will absolutely like flip the board, because I'm like, man, my brain is not good with this right now.
Yeah.
I've been thinking for 9 hours.
Right.
I'm done. So there's certain things where I'm like, you don't need to say it in the moment, but be like, hey, I know I stepped out of the group twice today. Here's why.
Yeah,
And it doesn't need to be in front of the whole class. You
Yeah.
send me an email. I had a student
that's
years
what
ago.
I was,
I tell my story.
saying to my daughter, and in your class too, I was like, go and talk to him.
I had a
and-
student-
And,
yeah.
and she did well.
I had a student years ago that was so quiet that what I would get, and I always tell them I'm a hypocrite with my phone sometimes, but I would see a notification, and it would be that child sitting right over there. Mr. Smallman, can you come help me when you have a second? I don't say a word, but as I wander through, I'm like, oh, hey, are you doing okay? I haven't gotten an email from you, but do you need some help knowing that, I tell them, like, you don't need to make a spectacle of yourself.
Right.
I'm not going to. I mean, I call it everybody. I'm not going to be like, hey, you haven't said a word. Do you understand all this? I may be like, hey, did you get this? And again, you guys can't tell me yes if you don't, but
Right, yeah.
also don't tell me no just because you didn't hear what I said. So that's what it is. The wonderful world of high school. Wouldn't trade it for the world, though. So I spent so many years doing things that, was like, quote unquote fun, and like, I did sales and I was good at it, but I won't say I didn't enjoy it, but it was not the same kind of enjoyment. I like the commission checks, and all that stuff, but it's just totally different. So.
Doesn't matter how many times I roll myself.
Oh, me too. At this point, I've given up.
I wish we could do board trainings like elementary school, like lower elementary, like, let's have nap time, followed by milk and cookies time, and then learning
We
time.
had our chocolate.
I know, we did have snack
We did
time.
have our chocolate.
And you may have had nap time for all I know.
No.
If you can sleep with your
I
eyes
mean, I will
open.
stand though. You see, I can't sit the whole time. I can't.
I can't either, that's why I
Yeah.
was up on my day.
That's why I was standing behind her. Like, stand up, shake my leg, yep.
Bouncing my feet.
All right, are we ready, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Rock and roll.
So this survey, I do this survey, it has evolved over the years. There's questions I used to ask, but I don't ask. And there's some questions that I asked that I didn't used to ask. But really what I'm doing is using it as a diagnostic tool, right? I'm trying to understand what you think and what you know about the school before I walk through the doors. It gives me some bearing on, okay, what might I need to look at once I get on the ground. But some of the questions are designed to uncover problems, right? So this first question is one of those questions. In this case, I think you all are aware, a board member is married to a teacher, so no surprises. I will never be able to forget in my mind the day I was doing this survey and the thing popped up like that. One person answered yes. And nobody on the board knew who the related person was. It turns out that the CFO was the CEO's sister. Oh, yeah, that's called fraud risk 101 right there. You never have chief executives in the same suite. Way too much control. The sisters eventually moved on from that school. I don't know if they were ever convicted, but there was an article about them I create Google alerts on my clients, so I've created a Google alert on you. So if you're in the news for anything bad, I'm gonna know it.
Good.
So I created a Google alert on them, and the sisters were eventually accused of fraud, and they left that school and went to another charter school where they were probably rehired and probably accused of fraud. So I don't know they ever got convicted, but that's a diagnostic question. It's making sure like we all know each other. I've seen schools lose their charters for, among other reasons, undisclosed relationships on the board. For example, a New York school years ago now, they lost a charter because the father of the school leader was on the board. He voted with the rest of the board to give the school leader this like really ridiculous pay raise. I don't remember the numbers, but it was just ridiculous on the face of it, like $50,000 or $60,000 jump in 1 year. And the authorizer, they found out that the father was on the board. The rest of the board said they didn't know, like they didn't supposedly know that he was the school leader's father. I'm not sure whether I buy it. What was funny about it was I'd seen the article, and this has happened to me a few times. The article had popped up in my Google feed, and then just randomly one day I'm going down the road, and the school leader, calls me because I print my phone number all over used to print my phone number all over the place. And she'd seen it on a publication or something. And they sometimes boards will hire me to when they get into a scuffle with the authorizer, and sometimes I can help at that in situations like that if the board is if the authorizer's in the wrong. But in this case, I read the article and I'm like, no, I'm sorry to tell you, but you guys deserve to lose your charter. That's just you can't do that. It's a public school. If your daddy's on the board, we need to know it's your daddy. Anyway, you guys, we're good there. Now this is an interesting question, and I told Sherry that while people said within a month or two, I'm guessing that most of you would not have been able to tell me why you think it would be a month or two. But now that you've had the training, you actually should be able to tell me why you could catch this in a month or two.
Reviewing the banks.
Look at the source documents.
I have to tell y'all, I called Zach on this one. And had him dizzy. He's like, I've checked everything. Remember, he was telling us run. He's like, I've checked everything. I'm wondering, like, why is she asking me this? I tried to say, like, it's just a random question. Like, don't get stressed. But he was like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Well, Varys knows me well enough to know I mean business. When
I told him I was working
I'm
for
asking
you. And
questions about finances, I think there's a memo perhaps inside of Varys is like, don't mess with that guy. But this like fraud is a serious thing, and the correct answer, if you can call that, should be within a month or two. Now, to put a caveat on that, there are some more sophisticated ways that it can be done that wouldn't necessarily be obvious, like ATM withdrawals or Carnival cruises, like fake vendors, for example. You can create a vendor on paper, create a Secretary of State filing, voila, instant thing. You can literally get an EIN in 5 minutes, go to the IRS's website. They do it all online now. It takes about 5 minutes. It's free. Bam, got an EIN. Go down to a bank that doesn't have a branch near the school and say, here's my EIN, here's my Secretary of State. Notice I have a business. I'd like to open a bank account in my business name. Bam, you have now a shell company. And then what some school leaders have done is then they'll do, this is called a pass-through scheme. If the school needs to buy 500 Chromebooks, they'll get 3 bids and they'll generate a fake bid for this fake company. And then since they can see the other bids, they know how to price below that. They look at Sam's Club or Costco and say, okay, well, everybody is bidding a retail price, so I can buy these at reduced retail for $49, and I can mark them up by $30 or something per unit times 500 units. That's a $15,000 profit for doing nothing. They go to Sam's Club, they use their personal card by the computer, so there's no paper trail to the school. They take it home, have some labels made, ship it, put it in a box, ship it to the school. They arrive, the school leader says, hey, Nick, we got to ship some Chromebooks. Would you stick the asset tags on it? He asset tags them, and he signs that they've been received. He hands Sherry the invoice. She's the one that created the shell company. hands her the invoice, it's ready for payment. She issues a check. It gets wired to the bank account or mailed to a PO box. That's usually the giveaway. Mailed to a PO box, and she just made 15 grand. So you're not going to see that on a bank statement. There is, if you're in the world of fraud investigations, there are a couple of techniques that we use, and one of them is, this is kind of funny about LLCs, but it seems like fake LLCs, the name has nothing to do with the business. It's like Winwood LLC. What is that? Unless you're selling wood or Winwood
Sounds
Instruments.
like golf.
Or golf?
Yeah.
Yeah. The name of my LLC is Force Multiplier Solutions because it's related to what I do. If you're curious how I got that name, I actually on my website explain how I use that, why I call that, but it has a direct bearing on my business, right? As opposed to like, Sunset Rainbow Gumdrops LLC. What the hell is that, right? The other trick with fake LLCs, and there was actually a charter school leader. Did you know Mary Carmichael? Did you ever cross her path? She was running a school. She wasn't actually convicted. The IG, I think the Inspector General sanctioned her. She was running a charter school over in Greenville. This is 10 years ago. And according to I FOIA'd the documents from the IG, from the Inspector General's office. So she had I think it was a 97-word contract with a school leader buddy of hers in Texas. And her school leader buddy in Texas had a contract with her, and they would provide consulting to each other by basically getting on the phone and like, hey, how's it going with you? No paper trail, no document, no log of calls, nothing. Just basically what it looked like. What it looked like just a paper trail to cover over there. Interesting about this, by the way, when I read about this, I said, well, she paid this other person like $100 grand. I'm like, that's supposed to be on their 990. There's a section on the 990, your tax return, any vendor that you pay $100 grand to or more in a year. So I pulled their 990, which is publicly available. I pulled their 990, no vendor listed. So the auditor didn't even fill out the 990 right. I knew the auditor and the auditing company, so I called him, and I'm a very popular guy. Like, yeah, you guys might want to restate that 990 because you're missing this, $100,000 outlay that should be in this section of the 990. They didn't do it. And what was funny though is it wasn't very long after they got out of auditing charter schools. They just stopped auditing charter schools altogether. So I don't know if my call had something to do with it or not. So I read about it. I FOIA'd as much stuff as I could. I guess what sounds to me and what happened, they had a policy about large contracts, and so the school leader took it to the board chair, and I guess the board chair was like this sweet little old lady who didn't really question much of anything, and she signed the approval for this contract. It should have gone to the board. The chair, what was the chair doing? She was utilizing the board's authority as her own. So the Inspector General didn't make anything out of that, didn't do anything with that. And Mary ended up with some sort of like verbal, like you shouldn't have done that, But that would have been harder to detect because there was a backing document. It was only a 97-word contract, but if you're a treasurer and you see this outlay to this company and it's on the bank statement, Winwood Consulting or something, and if you pick up the phone and say, hey, look at the bank statement, what's this Winwood? Oh yeah, so that we have a contract, it's a consultant in Texas, and I'm talking to the person, and the board chair approved it. And if you don't know that the board chair doesn't have authority to approve stuff like that, the chair was like, okay, thank you, cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So now we know the board needs to get copies from Veris of our bank statements. We'll get those.
Yeah, and I can do that for you too. I can print those.
And then Veris is doing the monthly accounting. Are they looking at the bank statements for potential fraud as part of their contract?
I don't think it's written in their contract, but I think they do.
They do, trust me.
Like if they see something that doesn't look right, they're gonna call and say, what is this?
And they do a forensic audit once a year. Right.
Not to my knowledge.
With the banking piece, if we spend anything over, typically their practice was anything $100 or over. They would want to see all the details for, but with me coming in and doing some stuff that I've been doing here lately, I tell them if they want it for 50 cents, they'll get it.
Yeah.
So it's more work on the front side, but it's easier towards the end when we do have our audit. So we've been sending her absolutely every receipt for absolutely everything that runs through on a credit card.
Okay, so that annual
Gas
audit's
receipts.
being checked for fraud too. They're
Well, I don't
checking
know how much it's a formal check for fraud. I think it's more of just an informal, they know what fraud looks like. But I don't think there's anything in their contractual stipulations about having forensic audit requirements. It really is / board role. So if, again, going to the literature on fraud risk management, it would say that as the school's chief executive, Sherry is responsible for preventing and deterring and detecting are the words we like. We don't like to say preventing, deterring and detecting fraud for all of her subordinates, which is her employees. And the board is essentially responsible for deterring and detecting fraud, making sure Sherry isn't committing the fraud. So she's looking downstream, you're looking downstream, and at some level, you have to also look across at the rest of the board, because sometimes you'll get board members that will try something, slippery.
But there are 4 different levels at Veris that we work with. There's one who just manages that piece of it, paying the bills, looking at the credit cards, one getting the statements, lining everything up.
One of the great advantages of a Veris type company is they're essentially a contract CFO in a manner of speaking. And you wouldn't be able to afford that level of expertise if you created an in-house position. You're talking about like another $100,000 a year person, basically, right? But the other advantage is Veris doesn't make any spending decisions. They're in the approval chain in bill.com, and that's where they're really applying oversight. They're looking at, does this look right? Has Sherry approved it right? So they're in the approval chain, but they aren't actually initiating any payments. Where you get an in-house CFO and they've got control of the books, that becomes super easy because they can initiate a payment, right? They can basically, whoop, there's a bill, here's a payment. It's like magic. So Veris can't do that. So that's an added layer of, it's not bulletproof, but it's an added layer of protection, and it should give you all sort of like a peace of
And that happened
mind.
just with Tara. We had a bill that came through, and I'm getting an invoice, so I'm thinking I got to send it to them. And she had done research on it. She said, we've never paid this before. Let's look at this a little deeper. And it was actually just a domain trying to sell us something.
Oh.
And she caught
yeah.
it.
Fraud.
So they're really
looking
good. I really have a lot of faith in them.
Yeah, there's a lot of fraud out there where these companies will just send invoices, they'll research it, and they just generate fake
And,
invoices.
I just didn't.
And, when you're processing
And it's just
2,000
it
invoices
says
a week,
REI, or it's not really,
They kind of hide.
and it was a domain, and it was like, I'm not sure, but she caught it.
yeah, that's a nice
Well,
catch.
and Latanya,
And
when we were
even-
going through Dropbox, there was somebody trying to get access that we declined last
Yeah.
year. We didn't know the name.
And you wouldn't have approved that invoice either, Sherry, because you would have said, I don't know who this is. I didn't
Yeah.
authorize this
Yeah.
purchase, whatever it
Mhm.
was. So that's a pretty good setup. So anyway, the key to detecting embezzlement soon is look at the source documents. Credit card statements at the board levels, Sherry's school credit card now, don't say, give me your personal credit card. School credit card. At the management level, all of her employees with credit cards and bank statements for all accounts on your balance sheet. All right. This I thought was a pretty honest answer. This is what I would predict for a question like this. It's unusual to find folks with professional level skills when it comes to understanding a balance sheet. For those of you who have it at a layman's level, I don't know if you know this formula, but we call it a balance sheet because it's a formula. Assets have to equal liabilities plus equity. Those are the 3 sections on a balance sheet, and assets always equal liabilities and equity together. Or equity minus assets equals liability, or assets minus liability equals equity. It's the distributive property of math. But assets equal liabilities and equity. So when you first look at a balance sheet, when someone hands me a balance sheet, the very first thing I do, it doesn't happen very often, but when the assets do not equal the liabilities plus equity, something is wrong. I don't know what, but it doesn't balance. So that's why we call it a balance sheet. If it doesn't balance, something's wrong, and I don't want to see anything else till we get it fixed, because something happened in there that doesn't add up. Within the equities section, which is usually the third section on the last section on a three-part balance sheet, there's a line called net income. And the second thing I look at is I look at that net income line and see what the amount for the period was. Then I flip the income statement over. That's the other financial statement. And I go to the last page and I look at net income and I make sure I just eyeball it. These are the same numbers. It's a match to the penny, literally to the penny, not to the dollar, to the penny. And if they don't match, something is wrong. Somebody made a mistake. They entered a number wrong. Something's got to be looked at. And then now you won't do this at a board level, and I rarely do this even at a management level, especially when I've sourced it to Veris. But if you wanted to get really precise, you know how when you're balancing your own checkbook, and so you get the statement and you tick off the checks, and then you'll have like 2 or 3 checks that you've written that didn't clear. So you manually say, okay, well, my balance is really this, what the bank says, minus these 3 checks. So the balance sheet on the balance for the checking account it's done exactly the same way. The only difference is for a school, you might have 20 or 30 or 80 things that haven't cleared, but the accountant knows what those are, and they actually print a report called a detailed reconciliation statement, and they will list those items for you. And when you add them all up and check them against what's cleared, it's a match to the number on the balance sheet. It's all tied together. You guys, I'm sure you know this, but you do not approve monthly financial statements. That's improper parliamentary procedure. The reason you don't approve them is you have no way of knowing if they're accurate. You can't know that as a board. It's just not possible. But you do approve the audit. And in the audit, you're basically taking the auditor's word for it, and the law allows you to reasonably rely, that's the phrase, reasonably rely on the advice given to you by experts, as long as you believe them to be giving you advice within the scope of their expertise, right? That's why if your lawyer says, here's what I advise, and let's say it's wrong, the law allows you to reasonably rely on that advice, because you're not a lawyer, and that's what we're paying her for, right? That kind of thing. So that's balance sheet. This was honest. It's sometimes I'll get boards that in psychology that's called a K-score or a faking well score. 3/4 of the people on the board tell me they have an expert level. When I get that, then I give them a test and I ask them, what's the formula for a balance sheet? And when they can't tell me it's assets equals liability plus equity, then I know they were faking well, is the term we give it in psychology. Cover level with income statement, same thing. One person's uncomfortable, that's fine. I'm not looking to see if you're experts, I'm looking to see who understands the financials that you're looking at, or what percentage of people do. Basic parliamentary procedure, I've looked at some of your minutes. I think I would agree with this pretty well. There's a great book called Roberts in Brief, not to be confused with Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules is currently in its 12th edition. There's a tiny little paperback called Roberts in Brief in its 3rd edition. Great tool for every board member to just have a copy. Roberts in Brief.
Roberts and?
Roberts in Brief.
Is it like the Cliff Notes version of Robert's?
It kind of is, yeah. Yeah, it's so handy because it covers 80% of the stuff that you do most of the time. It's just super handy. Like, how do I make a motion as chair? If someone introduces an amendment to a motion, it tells you like, okay, well, first you deal with the amendment, and then if that modifies the main motion, and then if it did, then you go back, right? Just some stuff that you do all the time. Roberts, though, to understand this, Roberts is even clear about this. By the way, Roberts is a possessive noun. His name was Henry M. Robert, so it's Roberts Rules. And actually, the intellectual property to this day is still owned by the Robert family. which is kind of fun. So it's been in their family for a long, long time. It is the most widely used. There are other forms of parliamentary procedure, but Roberts is still the most widely used. I don't know why. It doesn't seem any better or worse than much of anything else I've seen, but it just kind of became the de facto standard. But Robert's rules never would tell you that you can't do something. It assumes that what you've decided to do as a board always trumps what it says is a good practice. Where it is useful is in solving procedural, it's only useful really in this sense is for resolving procedural questions. And basically he said in the first edition, the reason that he wrote it was to protect the individual rights of every board member. Because if you think about it, when you have a group making a decision, the individual rights of an individual board member could, if you don't have any procedural rules, could be trumped by the rest of the board. So for example, you cannot deny another board member the opportunity to speak to a motion just because you don't think you're going to want to hear what they have to say. That's just not proper. What you can do, and I don't know that you guys need to do this, but I've definitely met boards that should do this. What you can do, Robert says, no individual board member may speak twice to the same motion on the table before every member has had the opportunity to speak once to it, right? So sometimes you get a board member that's like horn dogging the thing, and if someone says half a sentence and this board member's like, yeah, blah, 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 right? Nobody speaks twice to the same motion until everybody's had the opportunity to speak once. And you really, for the sake of reasonableness, you should cut it off at twice, like no more than twice or three times. So anyway, it's good for procedural difficulties only, but it is very valuable, very valuable. You guys know this. You really should try to avoid as often as you can discussing motions before you have a first and second, because if there's not even an agreement on the board that we should say something about this, why spend an hour talking about it? So just stuff like that. And knowing that, like there's instances, Rita, where there are certain instances where you can declare something if you want to without taking a vote. It's your choice. For example, approval of the minutes. You always have to ask, are there any corrections? But if you don't hear any, you can actually declare the minutes approved as submitted. Or you can say, okay, we'll make this correction. Can I have a motion? Can I have a second? Same thing on adjournment. If the agenda has been completed, you can't cut it off in the middle of the meeting. But if the agenda has been completed, you can declare the meeting adjourned. You can say, all right, we have concluded our agenda, so we are now adjourned. And note the time, and put it in the minutes, 8:15. Who's Dr. Horn, your secretary? Tell me your name again. Latanya. So Latanya, I think we're talking about this the other day. Robert says, and I think this is a really good practice. Robert says after the board has approved the minutes, the secretary and optionally the board chair. So for sure the secretary, optionally the board chair. In addition, you should write on the minutes approved by the board. You write the date, sign your name, and put your office. So Latanya, blah, 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 board secretary. Rita, blah, 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 board chair. Now here's, I'm going to tell you why I think this is important to do. Every time an attorney calls me and I agree to take a case, the first thing I ask him after I hear about the case is I say, okay, can I get a copy? How much access do we have to the minutes? I want to read the minutes. What was the board doing and how were they doing it? Now, again, I'm reading for the board. I'm always in your defense. I'm never going to take a case against a board. And in your case, I'm not even sure I could be an expert for the defense because I would be conflicted because you're a client. So it taints my opinion as a client. But I read the minutes to see what they're doing so I can tell the attorney, well, here, if you look at this set of minutes, you see this and this and this. So I think that creates risk for the board because the attorney for the plaintiff may see that and come in at this angle or whatever it is. The issue that you sometimes run into is there might be 6 different sets of minutes for a given meeting floating around, 6 different versions of the same meeting, and you don't know well, which of these did the board approve? We know they approved a set of minutes on this date, but which was the set? The signature solves that problem. This is the approved copy.
We used to do that in the early days, but as things got to more digital, you have to print it out and then.
Well, we have a-
And then scan it.
we have
back
a
up, is
digital
what you're saying,
solution.
Right? Okay,
We have a
good.
digital solution.
Oh, yeah, DocuSign. aren't we?
DocuSign,
Oh,
my favorite risk management tool. Oh, I love me some DocuSign. Too bad I'm not getting a commission, because I'd be driving whatever you could drive. So here's what you can do. So I had suggested to Sherry this week, and she agreed. I said, I really recommend that you set up a paid DocuSign account for the school. She agreed. We set it up. We actually did a contract for employees so she could see like how you do it from start to finish. So here's what I suggest. Once you have typed up the minutes, Latanya, if you want to do that. If not, it can be delegated to staff. That's reasonable. It's not unreasonable, but if you like, type them up, email them to Sherry. Sherry can load them into DocuSign. And then if you've ever used DocuSign, you can set the order of the signatures and even recipients who don't sign. So you can set it up. Sherry can get it loaded into DocuSign and then send it out. It would go to Latanya first. It'll fill in the date she signed it, but what we would do is write in the date that the board approved it. And then automatically it'll ping Rita if you want your signature on there, and she'll sign it. And then what I did at my last school was, Mary Allison was our legal counsel as well, is I set her as a recipient. And now the board's legal counsel has a signed copy of its minutes. And guess what that prevents? And you're gonna laugh at this. I have seen this more times than I can shake a stick at. Some little charter school somewhere, some board member gets their nose all out of joint, and they have the only copies of approved minutes, and they quit and they walk out the door with their little folder of approved minutes, and the board is missing a year's worth of minutes because they didn't create any paper trail for themselves of approved minutes. DocuSign solves it elegantly, and it's its own cloud. It's its own cloud version, so those documents stay like on a cloud drive. You can put another copy on Google Drive, so Mary's got a copy. Y'all can download a copy and save them on your computer. The school's got a copy on DocuSign, and even you could save a copy. It's just, from a risk management tool, it is the most beautiful thing anybody ever invented. I love it. I love it. I would rather have DocuSign than die, Dr. Pepper, if you said,
Don't.
if you said you have to make a choice.
Not after spending a week with you.
You
That's
have
what
to-
we have. It's right there beside each
Yeah,
other.
okay. It might be tough. It would be tough.
Yeah.
All right.
It is good though. It was really neat doing the contract on there. I'm gonna need some practice, but
Yep. All right. So you're good. I think you're good on parliamentary procedure. Now this is a question. Half of you said I don't know, but after your training, you should be able to tell me what the right answer to this question is.
No.
No. Is it no? But maybe what about this circumstance? No. Why is it no? It's important. If you can't tell me why, you don't really have the right answer. You're right. It's no. But why is it no? You're not.
One person's not gonna speak for the board.
That's right. Because the board is a collective. I mean, yeah.
And we talked about this during the week, though. I did tell Brian, though, some of the ones that put yes might be like a treasurer saying, I have not received the bank statements. But
Yeah.
that really wouldn't be the directing, they would be reminding her.
Yeah.
And make sure that those.
Requesting, yeah.
Yeah, and it's fine to
requesting
request
type thing,
documents.
right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
All right. Does the board have at least one committee, or if you leave typos in your survey, does it have at least one committees which has the authority to direct the principal within the scope of that committee's purpose? What is the correct answer?
No.
Well, what is
Or is it
going on
yes?
with this survey?
You know what?
Well, we
think that
talked
was
about this also,
I
about
put yes.
the principal
Yeah.
evaluation.
Yeah, the
that's-
personnel
Committee.
committee, we direct the principal to address certain things.
Why would you have a personnel committee? How many personnel do you have as a board?
Well, it's gonna be the
One.
principal evaluation committee, that's the
Yeah,
name
but you're
of it.
still not directing, you're just giving,
You're not right.
feedback,
That's right,
right?
that's right.
Okay.
Yes, and Dr. Carpenter has said Sherry should be coming up with her own goals for us
yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Well,
we worked
once
on
you
that last
see-
year.
Yes,
I don't know if you've seen the brief. in your outline of stuff. There's the brief that I'm doing and,
Oh, yeah. Remind me to talk about that. I'd
Okay.
forgotten, Sherry. Yeah, I want to talk about the brief you received on Friday.
Okay.
All right. Does your board have a written policy that requires stakeholders, so that's parents, students, board members, to take concerns or complaints to the principal before the board will take any action on them? I've got a lot of I don't knows. I'm going to send you the policy verbatim. It basically says this, with the exception of three things: imminent danger, ethical misconduct, or things covered by like fraud. With the exception of those three very objective, definable things, neither the board, its officers or directors, or its committees. So that's three elements right there. The board, its officers or directors, or its committees will take any action or will take any action on any concern or complaint until the school's principal has first had the opportunity to address it, except to inform the person stating the concern or the complaint of the existence of this policy. Right? So let's say, Jill, you get cornered in the supermarket and you know, you run into another, you know, a parent's cart, you know, your baskets. Oh, and then the car, like, how's it going? Great, you know, and then like you're on the board now at CHS, aren't you? And Jill's like, yeah, busted. And then they'll be like, well, you know, I have a concern about the school. I don't like this, or I don't think this is good, or you guys should build a gym, or, you know, fill in the blank. It puts you on the spot because on the one hand, you want to be a responsible board member and you feel like, okay, well, my job's to represent the stakeholders. And on the other hand, it's like, well, the board is a collective. I don't have any authority to actually do anything. So what you can do is actually satisfy both. You can say to the person, well, you know, it's not that I'm disinterested in your concern, but our board has a policy that actually prohibits me from taking any action on this until you've taken it to our executive director. Oh, well, I've done that already and I didn't get it, or she didn't respond. Okay, I'll let our board chair know. Short of that, well, and this is what people say 99% of the time, well, I can't talk to her. She doesn't listen. I'm afraid they'll take it out of my kids. When I have a parent say that to me, and it gets said to us as principals, you know, they'll take it out of my kid. I always say, you know what, I find that very insulting because I have a lot of confidence. My staff is very professional. We don't retaliate against children because we're unhappy with something that the parents said to us. We just don't do that. And that usually shuts that nonsense down because it's just nonsense. But what you'll find 99.9237% of the time is you'll find that they just won't take it to the school. Now, as a young school leader, I had to learn this the hard way. Remember I told you that little Christian school, 220 kids in East Texas, and I thought it was my job to listen to parent complaints and then anonymously take them back to my teachers. I thought that's like, you know, there's no like principal job. I'm like, this is
but
what
you do feel that way.
this is what I'm supposed to
You don't
do.
want to, but you don't want, you do, I do feel that way myself sometimes.
Well, so here's what happened. So I'm doing it, like I'm being conscientious, and you know, parent comes in and, you know, Mrs. Brown is so strict with the enforcement of the dress code, and da. And I'm like, okay, well, then I go to Mrs. Brown. I'm like, I can't tell you what parent said this because it was said to me anonymously, but the parents feel, but that's really difficult to do because the teacher is going to say what? Well, who feels that way, right? Well,
Well, they know, because I know which kid they need.
I can't tell you that, right? Or the other thing I would do is like, instead of trying to single out the teacher, I get I have my little staff meeting. I think I had like 12 or 15 teachers, a little staff meeting, very familial. And then I would say, you know, I've had some complaints from parents about enforcement of dress code. Well, you know, and so one day, Mrs. Jean comes in my office. She was my best teacher, maybe the best teacher that ever worked for me ever. She was amazing. Now I'm 30 and Mrs. Jean at the time is about 42 or 44. So a little bit of, you know, like I'm still a little intimidated. I'm just this young little wet-nosed, you know, school administrator. But I just absolutely adored her. She was fantastic with the kids. Got results that just absolutely astounded me from the first day. Everybody knew she was the best teacher in the school, like, so it wasn't any big secret. So when Mrs. Jean came to you and said, And she did one day, she knocked on my door, and it was Mr. Carpenter at the time. She goes, "Mr. Carpenter, I need to have a word with you." And just the way she said it, like your mother, like Mr. Carpenter, you know. I'm like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. Except I was a Christian school administrator, I couldn't even say crap. Right? Oh crud. So she comes in and she closes the door, and I'm like, oh crud, now I'm really in trouble. She's closing the door, and she looked at me. Now, again, I had just undescribable amount of respect for this lady. So I'm like seriously concerned that she's seriously concerned. And she said, "You need to understand something. You are losing the respect of your faculty. And you could have knocked me out of my chair with a feather, because I was a conscientious leader, trying to go do a good job, you know, all that." And I was like, "How?" And she said, "Because you let parents come in here and complain about us. And then instead of directing the parent to go back to the teacher, you let them complain anonymously. And then you come back and try to dance around the issue, you know, yada, yada, yada." And I was like, "Well, I thought that's what I was supposed to." And I really did. And I said, "What am I supposed to do?" And she said, "You're supposed to send them to us. And if they don't like the answer that they get from us, then they can complain to you. And then the three of us will sit in your office and we will work it out." And I was like, you know what? I think you're right. And this is 1990, right? So we didn't have computers. I showed Sherry a picture I have. And they didn't have a computer on my desk. So if you wanted to print something, you had to like sketch it and then get in your car, drive down to the printer. And we had triplicate copies. It was white, pink, and goldenrod. It wasn't yellow, it was goldenrod. And if you remember white, pink, goldenrod, you're as old as I am. And so I designed this form. I call it a parent concern slip, because that's what the word they use. I have a concern, right? I call it a parent concern slip. And it basically said, you know, the name of the parent, sort of a sentence about what the thing was, the date. And then I had a little section on the bottom and where it said the teacher, please write a response. So I just waited for the phone to ring. It didn't take very long. And it's, by the way, it's always the same 6 families. You got 200 families in the school. It's the same 6. Phone rings, one of the 6 families. Am I telling the truth about it? Right?
Yeah.
Same 6 families. It's almost predictable. Tell me the complaint. I'll tell you the family. The phone rings, and it's, you know, family A. And it's, you know, just give me an earful. I'm writing it down. And so when she was done, I did the active listening, reflected back to her. "So you're concerned that, you know, Mrs. Brown doesn't like the da. Yeah, that's right. And I want something done about it." I said, "Awesome." I said, "Well, so good news. I have written all this down on our parent concern slip form, and it's 3 copies, and I'm going to put a copy in the teacher's box. It requires them to get back to you within 24 hours. If that doesn't happen, please let me." "Oh, wait, I didn't mean for you." And then I was like, "Well, I'm sorry. It's what the form requires us to do." The form. Yeah. And guess how quickly the people stopped bypassing the teachers? It went to 0 like that.
Good.
Now, this works at the board level too. York Preparatory Academy. After training the board in 2014, they brought me back in the spring and they said, "It's really blowing up. Can you just run it for a year? We'll find a permanent leader." I'm like, "Yep." But the board's got to agree to certain things. I'm not going to take the job unless you agree to these certain things. The no action until policy, which I just quoted for you, said you must adopt that. I need to see it in your minutes. That is board policy. And this is going to be in my recommendation letter for you, the no action until policy. I can't run around and put out fires and address complaints when people don't talk to me. So the board is basically, its position is the same as the leader's position. I'm not going to listen to you criticize my people. You have 1 people. I'm not going to just let you criticize people behind my back. You go to the person, unless it's imminent danger. You know, my kid said her kid was bringing a gun to the school. Okay, we don't say, "Well, you got to talk to the principal." No, you call everybody. You call the police. You call the board chair, the school leader, right? Those 3 exceptions. But you're going to find 0.238% of the time, it's none of those. It's, you know, "I don't like the dress code policy. It's too rigidly enforced, and the teacher, it's that kind of crap, right? It's just gossip. And by the way, putting it on Facebook doesn't turn it magically from gossip into gospel. It's just digitized gossip. And I don't even have a Facebook account because I tell people I didn't listen to gossip when we didn't have Facebook in the world. It was a wonderful world back then. And I'm not going to listen to it now because somehow putting it on Facebook turns it from something being gossip other than what it is. So anyway, you should, you'll have a policy. I'll give you the policy for this. Anyway, we implemented the policy, or correct, because I said I did the same thing at first. I won't agree to run the school unless you have this policy, because I'm not Superman. I'm not, I'm just a human being. But I'm not going to be chewed up and spit out by gossip because my board won't shut it down. The founding chair of that school, they brought me on in April. We got to about October. The founding chair, just absolutely adore this gentleman. One October, it was around October, he goes, man, I got to tell you, he goes, the number of people calling me and sending me emails since we implemented your no action until policy is like, my inbox has gone to 0 because a couple of people did it. We implemented it. We put it in the student parent handbook, put it also in the employee handbook. A couple of people did it, and the chair said, it's not that I'm disinterested in your concern, but board policy prohibits me from doing anything unless it's one of these 3 things. For taking any action, we got to take it to our principal.
Of course, I have a question. Y'all. So if you have a parent, they do all the petty, stupid Facebook stuff.
Yeah.
But then they go to Sherry and they have a concern, and Sherry says, I'm sorry, we can't address that concern. Thank you for bringing it to me, though. And they're mad, and then they come to the board. What is our obligation to investigating that concern?
Well, it depends on the concern, but basically they're going to come. There's 2 ways for it to happen, or maybe 3, depending on how you splice it. So first of all, if it's one of those 3 things, imminent danger,
Right.
ethical misconduct, or like fraud,
Yeah.
then you have a committee, and there are 3 committees I recommend for every board, and only 3: a governance committee, a risk management oversight committee, and a why am I blanking out the third committee?
It'll come.
I'm sorry, I'm blanking it. But anyway, you have a committee that is tasked with investigating. If it's those 3, it falls to that committee to investigate. But that happens by board action, right? You go into closed session. You may or may not have Sherry in the room, depending on if you want to discuss it, ask her questions. You have your attorney present for sure, and you say, hey, I got a complaint this week that, Sherry was seen, brandishing a gun in the parking lot, and we need to investigate this, And,
Just trying to imagine that in my mind.
Yeah. Oh, don't be fooled by that sweet little grandmother. Yeah. No, so then you would come out and the board would authorize the committee to investigate, and then you would investigate. Usually though, if it's something that serious, that's when you're either turning to your attorney or you're hiring an outside person because you're a little too close to the thing to investigate. So thankfully those things tend not to happen. It's pretty rare. Most of the time it's just stuff that people just don't like, and we complain about it to each other, and
So if it's something petty, like I don't like how the prom was organized.
Yeah.
I don't like how you canceled this team. Then
Right.
that's something we could say, the principal's answered your response. I'm sorry you didn't like the answer,
Yeah.
but we're not pursuing it further. Do
Yeah.
we have to notify them that, or do we just make that decision as a board?
Yeah, you would notify them. So I'll give you a real life example. This happened to a client of mine about 4 years ago. And this was a performing arts school and a really amazing school. Like there's just some school where you just walk in and go, wow. Like this is why schools charter, right? Like to do something really cool. Because they were a performing arts school, they had like a lounge with like a student lounge with a grand piano in it. And these kids would compose music, and they had guitar and they had like one of the best theater guys in the state was like the head of their drama thing, like a certified theater guy. it's an amazing school. It's just absolutely amazing. And they were at a Shakespeare festival with the kids, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but some of the board members were there because they had kids in the school, and something happened at the festival. And I can't remember. It was something that this board member thought that the school should have done something, and they went to the school leader, and they're like, basically telling him like, like there was an opportunity to do something and he didn't do it or something. I can't remember. Just an opinion, right? Not necessarily even a bad opinion. It wasn't like I think we should, the kids should have to do, jumping jacks until they collapse for discipline. Not like a bad opinion, just an opinion. And the school leader is, he's a very diplomatic guy. He's actually a professional musician himself. Goes on tour with. Sometimes on tour with bands that if I named you would know. And so he was like, he's just not a guy that's going to be like, get the F out of my face, right? He's just more diplomatic. But he was basically, I think it was, no, we're not going to do that. And this board member and then one other came back and their nose all out of joint because the school leader said, yeah, we're not doing that. And it had gotten to the point of conflict where they called me in, I did a risk management assessment, and I drilled down on this specific conflict. And then when we got the board together for this, we were at this point in the day, and I said, now, nobody likes to bring up the elephant in the room, but that's what you brought me here. We have this conflict, as I understand it. I had interviewed the individual board members, gotten their take on it, interviewed the school leader, got his take. I said, this just looks like normal management to me, and I'd explain, board authority is collective, and so the, board member at a Shakespeare event has no more authority than any other parent at a Shakespeare event. And and I said to the board, you should have a policy that says, and there's another policy I'm going to recommend for you guys. It's called the one voice policy, and it basically says only majority votes of the board constitute binding instructions on our principal. And so I said, this is outside that one voice policy. You didn't have the policy at the time, but they followed my recommendation. And so basically, in my judgment, the board member was out of line, and she got mad and quit. And the school's been a better place since then. And nobody's lost any sleep over it. And you can't have an organization without relational rules. You try to do an organization without rules, you're going to have collisions. And you have to have rules for how we're going to navigate those collisions. So the one voice policy, but York Prep, the chair himself was like, man, my inbox has just gone to 0. Love it. If you want to put this on steroids, I can't remember how your website's configured, but don't put your individual email addresses on the website. Put board@coastalhighschool.org, and then it can be set up to copy all of you. So people won't be like pestering your, in your individual email. Can I be honest with you sometimes? And this is not a backhand way of trying to convey something, because I really don't know you folks, certainly not individually. So if I'm striking close to a nerve, this is a wild guess based on patterns, or just based on patterns, right? So I'm not trying to, if this is happening in your school, I'm not trying to like single somebody out, like I know about this, so I'm just gonna say, I don't know if this is going on, but sometimes you get board members who just thrive on conflict, and they will go around and give out their email address and basically build a little cabal to follow them. And so their email blows up, right? Because they've set themselves up as the great reconciler or the great whatever for the board, and they like that conflict. They like being in the middle of the maelstrom, and they'll complain like, I get so many emails from parents about this. Well, yeah, you've set yourself up to do that. So don't do it. Have a policy that prohibits it. Create one email for the board that copies to all of you, so there's no secrets. If somebody mails the board, we all get to know about, emails the board, we all get to know about it. And if they come to you it may be rare and it happens, but somebody will come and say, I went and talked to Sherry about this and I just don't feel this is right. The chair will usually say, okay, the board will take it under advisement. And then you can decide later, usually in closed session, is this something we need to take some action on? and then you let the parent know we've reviewed this, and again, you know, keep your attorney close, right? Your attorney is your best buddy in school governance, right? Keep your attorney close. Most of you got this question right. What is the right answer?
Disagree.
Disagree.
Yeah, that's the right answer.
Yeah.
No obligation.
Question again.
I'm not Superman. I can please one boss, the board, if I know what the board wants from me. I cannot please 9 people. I'm good at what I do, but I cannot make 9 individuals happy. Nobody can. And this is just, I'm trying to see, you know, if you guys talk about academics, it looks like you do, you know, most of the answers are between 1 to 3 or more. So it looks like you're talking about, that's good. And so I'm not going to share the individual concerns for you because you can say, oh, I know who wrote that. That's how Bob talks. So I'm not going to do that. But anyway, let's wrap up here. We do it on time.
Yeah, it's 4:44.
Two more hours.
I'm in for it.
So I will stay, by the way, if you lose a quorum, I'm happy to stay and just have some informal discussion if anybody wants to like get some more mileage out of this old truck here. Usually this is like a 6 to 8 hour session. Preliminary suggestions from a risk standpoint. So when I look at school, when I've looked at the school this week and I've looked in depth, like I didn't just come and pop through and say, yeah, looks pretty good to me. I've looked in depth, 75 things, looked at your financial policies, actually looked at some financial transactions in your actual bank accounts and said, what is this transaction? What is that transaction? Talked through the risks with Sherry and just really done a lot of things. So you'll get a report from me that's probably 8 to 10 pages long with probably on each page, probably something like 8 to 10 recommendations where I explain like, this is what I observed, this is why it's important, a sensor to, and then what to do about it. So the beauty of that is you can use it like a checklist. Sometimes they even put little check boxes, so you can use it as like a blueprint. So I always like to sort of end the week with some preliminary observations and maybe a few preliminary recommendations. So here we go. I think you have a really solid school, and you've already heard from me. If I didn't think that, I'm not a guy that will blow smoke in your face. It's just not how I roll. I make a lot of people angry because I usually say exactly what I think, regardless of who is sitting there. So I'm pretty straightforward. And so if I say you have a solid school, I really think that. If I didn't think that, I'd be telling you probably pretty directly. It's not that I'm out to hurt feelings, but I think you have a solid school. I see these good ratings on the wall. I'm like, wow. And it's a Title I school, and it's like double wow, right? She's doing something I wasn't able to do. I looked in depth at your financials. We spent 45 minutes with Varys, and I asked very specific questions that I had written down ahead of time, and it got satisfactory answers to them. And I came away from that. I'm like, well, I don't know who's concerned about the financial position of the school, but you guys are just cooking with gas. I mean, it's so extreme that I had said to Sherry, I think you're saving too much. I think you should be putting more money into operations because you're going to burn folks out. Right. So I made some recommendations on that. So you're in great shape. I'm aware, of course, of the conflicts that are external to the school, and those will resolve themselves. I tend to mostly view stuff like that as a tempest in a teacup. It seems really intense when you're in it at the moment, but 3 months from now you go, well, storm's over, whatever. I don't see any long-term risks there. So here's sort of like your big areas of risk exposure. First, and this might sound trivial, but it's actually, I think, pretty important. So important that it's the first chapter in the 5th book that I'm working on that I'm giving to Sherry. We talked a lot about it. And that is her title and she doesn't have a job description. Her job title is lying to her and lying to you. She is not a principal. She does principally functions. I'm just feeling free to turn that into an adjective because, I have a PhD, so I can just make up adjectives. She does principally functions, but she is an executive director. And the problem is when you use the wrong title, you associate the wrong things with that. You misassociate, right? She does some principal things. I get that, especially in a small school. It does fall to her. But as LaTanya and I were talking this week, retired principal, there's no principal in the district that has to manage her relationship with the board and manage the school through that relationship with the board. That's 51% of the job right there, how well you do that. There's no principal that has to sit down and say, okay, I got $4 million to spend next year. How do I do this? And staff up the needs of the school. There's no principal where a consultant comes along and says, all right, well, you need to develop a comprehensive risk management assessment and do it. That's a central office function in the district world. Principals don't do that. If I said it to a principal in the district, they'd be like, no, I don't. That's the central office. And also, I don't even know what a risk management assessment is, so get out of here. There's no principal that does that. So if you look at, there are actually 10 domains that she's responsible for, right? And I've given her a sample, given her a chapter and a sample job description, but it's like she is responsible for the instructional and the academic and the culture, the instructional culture. Those are kind of two things that go together. So like a principal, she does do that, right? But she's responsible for the entire financial management of the organization, including fraud risk management. Principals don't do that. She's for the entire enterprise risk management of the organization, beyond fraud. Principals don't do that. She's responsible for being the architect, if you will, and then supervising all of operations. Principals definitely don't do that. They do instruction, right, primarily. She does operations. She's responsible for being the architect of all HR. Principals don't do that. If LaTanya had a position to fill, she'd call the central office and they might send her 3 applicants that she could interview. She doesn't do the background checks, call the references, look at their transcripts, do their, what's that shot? The TV shot.
Check.
Yeah, she doesn't do the I-9, the sled check. She just calls the central office back and we like Sally. And then the central office says, well, we're not going to give you Sally. We're going to put Sally over there. How did you feel about Susan? Okay, we'll take Susan. All right, that's how it works. Not here. She has to run the ads, interview the candidates, get their credentials, do the I-9, do the sled check, get the copy of their license, call their references, maintain their HR files. Principals don't maintain HR files on people, issue contracts. She's got 50 contracts she's getting ready to issue. Principals don't do that in the district world. She's got to do it. And it's a really vital part of the job. The wording that we use in that contract. Is it an exempt employee or a non-exempt employee? And principals don't even know the difference. She's got to know the difference. So there's HR, there's support. I call it support to the board. It's all the stuff she does to see that you're successful as a board. Only an idiot executive director would say, I don't care if my board fails. You're an idiot. If you're an executive director and you think that, you're an idiot. And you're probably going to be an unemployed idiot before very long. Because a good executive director is like, I'm going to make my board as successful as I can make them. So she's got that. And then professional development. I don't know if I hit all 10, but that's kind of the down and dirty. Authorizer / compliance. She's got to know all of it. IEP law, HR, FLSA, acronyms out the wazoo. She has to know all of it because she can't afford to steer the school into a compliance ditch because you can get stuck. So the problem is when you use the wrong title, people say, okay, I know what a principal does. Dorothy, you know what a principal does. She's not a principal. This, by the way, is harder to accept. She's going to go through a little bit of mourning here, MOURNING, because it's natural human being, but her actual function is executive director, because executive directors are responsible for all of it. She's going to go through a little bit of mourning, but it's up to the board to change her job title. You can do that through her contract. I'll actually send you a template job description. You're welcome to tweak it up to suit yourselves, but it has all of this written into it. one of the things that executive directors do in making sure that their board is successful is they communicate with their board. So a few years ago, in fact, 10 years ago, going back to YPA, I just decided one day, it's too difficult to be on a board and my board doesn't hear from me but once a month. Like, that's a long time to go. Maybe I have time to call the school leader, but I don't want to bother her. I know she's busy, so I don't want to call her and say, hey, how's it going over there, So I just did this. The board didn't require me to do it. I just did it. I did it again at Vertus for 2.5 years. Every 2 weeks, every now and then we'd have a little gap. I'd trip and it might be 3 weeks. But every 2 weeks, basically snow day or holiday, the board gets an executive brief from me. So I call it a bi-monthly executive. I used to call it the bi-monthly board report, but my previous 2 lieutenants at Vertus, 2 wonderful ladies, wonderful leaders, they were like, Brian, you cannot call it a bimber. And I'm like, it's a bimber, bi-monthly board report. They're like, no, that's too close to bimbo. So I was like, okay, it's the bi-monthly executive brief or EB. But every 2 weeks, in one piece of paper, front and back, those 10 domains, if you had a chance to look at it, those 10 domains, same 10 domains, bullet point. It's not even hard to write because you don't actually write it, you just compile it. Well, how do you compile it? You keep the tab open on your computer all week long, and every day or every other day, you just log on for a few minutes and just add a bullet point. We did this, we did that. We sat down and we were compiling it from scratch. I think even from scratch, we did it in 20 minutes maybe. And then we added a couple things to it. You edit it, check it for typos, and send it. I always send it just as you got it, BCC, so nobody does an accidental reply all and you get yourself in trouble with the law. Because anybody who wants to throw a rock at you will say they're violating open meetings law, and here's the email chain to prove it, right? Yep. So I BCC, I tell my board I'm BCCing you, you're all BCC'd on this, so we don't get open meetings. I copy the attorney and I send it. Now picture this, your board members, every 2 weeks, there's an update for you. Bullet point, single piece of paper front back.
This is hard to read.
Well, not hard to read. This is what's going on at the school. So we get into a board meeting and now you've got 2 reports from me. Sometimes it'll fall on the day of the board meeting. It kind of depends on how you flesh it out, or it'll go in the board packet. We'd get in the board meeting and the chair would say, Dr. Carpenter, the chair would say, okay, everybody received Dr. Carpenter's latest brief. Does anybody have any questions for him? Sometimes people would, sometimes they wouldn't. And so if they did, I would just answer questions. He'd say, in this case, he'd say, Dr. Carpenter, you have any updates for the board? Sometimes I have an update, some I want to add, or some I want to emphasize. What I don't do is I don't sit there and read to my board, because it's an assumption on my part, but I'm guessing that they can read. I think they can. I didn't actually ask them if they all could read, but I think they can read. It's not a bedtime story. The executive report, I'm not reading to you. Like, don't insult me by reading to me in a professional context. By doing that, you suck 15 to 20 minutes of wasted time right out of the whole board meeting. It's just gone. Any questions for Sherry? No? Sherry, any updates for us? Yeah, I want to draw your attention to the couple things I highlighted. Okay, thank you. Next item of business, boom. 15 to 20 minutes just gone out of every board meeting. I don't know how long your board meetings are, but 90 minutes is for a normal board meeting. Sometimes they can be longer for a reason, but 90 minutes, that's plenty. If you're going much longer than 90 minutes, you're into the law of diminishing returns. You're not getting any bang for your buck, much beyond the 90-minute mark. I don't know if you guys ever had this experience at this school or any other school, but I've sat in board meetings that started at 6 and we didn't adjourn until 1 or 2 a.m.
Oh,
Can you imagine that?
No, I'd be resigning from that board.
Yeah. I would resign as the executive director. So anyway, it's not that I'm not saying just gloss over and don't talk about important stuff. I'm saying that you can save time and guess what? So there's plenty of ways you can criticize me. Like, I'm fat, I'm pretty color coordinated today, but I'm not always color coordinated. I'm pretty straight spoken, I'm pretty candid. So you could say, well, he's too blunt. Guess what no board of mine has ever said about me in the negative category, has never said this about me. No?
You don't
Yes,
keep
sometimes
them
I'm wrong.
informed.
Huh?
You didn't keep them informed.
He doesn't communicate with us. No board has ever said that about me. Now, here's a little magic trick. Nobody's done it yet. I'm working on this in the book, so people will be doing this soon, I hope. But here's a little magic trick for you. I told Sherry, I said, I'd love for you to try this. It's always a challenge when you get to executive director evaluation time. I'm going to use the title that I'm suggesting that you begin using for. It's always a challenge, right? Because you're trying to summarize a year's worth of stuff, and it's like, what do we focus on, and what about this? And nobody's done this yet. I'd love for somebody to do this. I'd love for you guys to be the first. If you are, I'll write a second edition of the book and name your school by name. And you'll be read across the country. You'll be famous across the country. So every 2 weeks, so you've got 26 executive briefs in a year, give or take, right? Sometimes I would get real busy and we'd go maybe 3 weeks, and I would note it on the exec thing, say, I was busy, asterisk, so this is 3 weeks. But 26, give or take. What if you uploaded 26 PDFs of the reports to AI and said, in 2 pages, summarize what you see as the highs and lows of this executive director's performance based on the 10 domains. So AL spit out some stuff. The committee reads it and says, yeah, this is right. No, that's not right. You guys have got experience with AI. It gets some stuff wrong, but it is getting better. I've been using it pretty intently now for about 8 months. It's impressive how it learns. It learns. It's crazy. And then you get it to spit out a summary to say, I want it in 2 pages. Then the committee basically assigns a value, a grade to it, needs improvement, exceeds expectations, some sort of value to it. Sit down, do you agree? Yep, sign here, done. Because what you're really doing, if you look at those reports, you're actually informally evaluating her every 2 weeks. Oh, I don't see this on here. I heard about this. How come this isn't on? Now you don't put any, by the way, and I told her this, you don't put any confidential information on that report, right? I would say, like, there's a personnel matter I want to discuss with you in closed session. So there'll be a closed session on the agenda. I don't say, yeah, I'm going to get together. We're going to talk about Sally, but we're going to go in a closed session. Because, yeah. Anyway, so the bi-monthly executive brief, the lady that I both selected and trained to succeed me, the board hired her, but I basically handpicked her and trained her for 2 years. I said to her when I left, you can keep doing the BIMBR or not. It's just the board doesn't require it of you, but it's a very powerful tool. And here's why it's so powerful. Just think about human relationships. Transparency and frequency of communication build trust. If you're transparent and you're frequent, it's just basic human relationships. The other thing it does for the board, apart from this great little sort of breadcrumb trail of what's what, is it helps you to see the enormity of the stuff that she's working on. Because you call her principal, and in your mind's like, okay, I think I know what she's working on. You start seeing that report that you received the first one, you see that every 2 weeks, and you start to get a different sort of appreciation for the enormity of the job, because it is a brutal job. I ain't kidding you. There are reasons why I've chosen to be a consultant. I could run a school with my credentials in 35 years. I could probably go run a private school somewhere for maybe a charter school for $350,000 a year. There's a reason why I'm a consultant at, say, $100,000 a year, right? The enormity of the job is a lot of that. I just don't want to work that hard. Just don't want to work that hard anymore. So anyway, the BMAB. So risks for your school. Risk number 1, continuing to think of the person in Sherry's role as a principal. That's a huge risk to the school. And here's why it's about to become really acute. You're going to be adding 100 students, probably conservatively, maybe more than that next year, 100 students. As I've explained to Sherry, when an organization grows, systems within the organization begin to break. Like what worked when you were 100 students doesn't work with what's 350 plus next year. It's not the same. First you have more people, and so it's less family-like, and so you're more dependent on procedures, and it forces you to become less dependent on a direct relationship with people. When I had 12 teachers, staff meetings were easy and very familial. Like it was just great, and it just was so easy to get stuff done. When I ran York Prep, I had, I don't remember, 130 staff members and 1,500 kids. There's nothing familiar about that. I felt bad because I couldn't remember the names I had 100 teachers. I couldn't remember their names. I'm just not good with names. I'd see them in the grocery store and I'd be like, hey, I can remember their grade level, like 3rd grade, right? Yeah, tell me your name. I felt terrible after like a year. I had no way the only way I would be able to do that would be like to take a photograph of them, create an index card, write their name and their grade, and then just sit every day and flip through my index cards and memorize it. And it felt like there were better uses of my time as far as what I could do for the school. So risk number 1, you guys are about to become bigger. You're going to be 550 to meet your funding requirements in the next couple of years. And if you don't see, if either you don't see it or you all collectively don't see it, that the organization has to change, is itself a risk exposure. You're going to have to change. Not necessarily a specific thing I'm thinking about, but I'm just saying brace for impact. It gets harder. It just gets harder. So that's the first sort of like, that was after I was getting the lay of the land. I'm like, yeah, here's the big risk. Some of the policies that I've talked about will help. I'll actually give you the wording to the policies, so you don't have to sit around and like reinvent the wheel, but the no action until policy. Second big risk, and you and I talked about, I think, a little bit. We really ran out of time because we were doing a lot of other stuff. I definitely see risk in transitioning from one authorizer to the other. You didn't have any choice in it. I get it. Limestone just folded up. Love to know what that board was thinking about the last 5 to 10 years of operation. The board of the college, because usually the financial cliff doesn't suddenly appear on. It's usually building like anyway. It's tough on small colleges enrollment. They're enrollment dependent, just like schools are. Anyway, you're in this forced transition right now, and I don't know. I've never had any dealings much with Limestone. We've had extensive dealings with Erskine, and more in the past 10 years ago, extensive dealings with SPCSD. I can just tell you from what I know, SPCSD is a different critter. It's not. It's bigger. So it's less familial feeling in your interactions than it was with Limestone. I don't know, for example, so I don't want to speak out of turn, I don't know how easy it's going to be for Sherry to get Chris Neely on the phone. Whereas Angel, much more familiar, smaller portfolio schools, right?
Angel's very available.
Yeah, so I don't know if Chris may or may not be that way, but Chris definitely have a bigger staff. So like more intermediaries you have to deal with. I believe that the way SPCSD does it is they will assign like a rep to your board who may show up at board meetings and may want to give you feedback about things that they think you should do better or do. And you just have to kind of, you're an authorized entity. You just have to smile and say, that's great. Thank you. Right. That's a big risk. And of course, eventually you have to get the charter renewed. I don't know how many.
We just did that when we came to
When you came?
Limestones. We have 7.
7 years?
There 7 years.
Okay, that's good. So some room to work.
But
And
we did have, some, we called them amendments, you called them that we talked about with the charter.
okay,
Remember, you and I talked about that? I think you called it something else. I called it an amendment, but we know that there's some things in the charter, and we spoke with the new district about that there were just some things that need to be updated. It was, made 12 years ago, and it's,
yeah,
it hasn't grown with the time than we have, and so we need some things.
it's sort of analogous to getting divorced and marrying a new partner. right? Sort of analogous to that. The new partner is different than the old partner, and you just have to, if it's gonna last, you just have to learn how that new partner waltzes, and you know, with the authorizer, make no mistake, they are a regulatory entity. They themselves are under huge pressure. All the authorizers are, Erskine now being the other sort of big boy on the block. They're all in Columbia. I always would joke around when I was running an SPCSD school. I'm like, so if the legislature farts, you guys smell it. They're that close. They're like right there on the hill, and they're under huge political pressure to, you know, why are you keeping failing schools in your portfolio? Now you guys are good. You're crushing it, you know, on that index. Authorizers tend to worry about schools that are financially. They don't want to they hate headlines. Erskine's had some schools in headlines in the last few months, and it's embarrassing, and it's a lot of political pressure, but it's a new spouse, and it's hard to learn sometimes, like, oh, this spouse snores, my other one did, you know, I don't know what to say. Been divorced but never remarried. So, but it is a risk. It's risk to the school because you're going to have to sort of adjust. I think you're going to have to adjust on that. That's really the big stuff. I didn't see anything, and I looked at a lot of stuff. I didn't see anything that I was like, "Ooh, I sure am concerned about that." I'm aware of the external stuff. I don't want to comment on it, being its own session. It'll solve itself. And you guys your legal counsel's giving you advice. You're following the advice of your legal counsel. It'll resolve. These things will resolve. Don't lose too much sleep over it. And as much as you can, sort of get on with business because you got kids to educate. All right, questions for me?
Everybody good?
I do not have a
Alright.
question at this time.
The items on the agenda are completed. This meeting is adjourned.
I will,
Sorry.
again, I will, if you want to, anybody wants to stick around and just chat, I'll be glad to chat with you, but it's not
Next board meeting.
a board meeting.
Is the 14th?
14. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes,
while
yes,
we were
April
here.
14th is our next board meeting. It's the Tuesday after spring break. So we'll be working on that agenda this week to try to knock it out before we go.
I do have a question, and
As long as it's not a concern.
it's a follow-up to make sure that we are moving in the right direction. So at this board meeting, we approved,
The charter contract.
the minutes from March 10th.
Oh, yeah,
So I'm gonna print the March 10th, because now we can take off draft.
right.
I sign, Rita sign.
So what I would do now is you take the draft off.
Yeah.
Just email the clean
Okay.
copy to Sherry. She'll put them in DocuSign.
Okay.
And if you want help, you can call me if you
I
want
will.
to sort of walk you through.
I've
But
just done it one time.
Okay.
But I
So,
will.
yeah, you queue it up, both
Okay.
y'all can sign. Mary Allison gets a copy, everybody you'll never have a case where someone walked out the door with the only minutes.
Uh-huh.
I've seen that happen in 2 schools I've been in the last 12 months. I'm like, are you kidding me? There should be a crime called grand theft of minutes, but nobody's ever been prosecuted for stealing minutes, but you give a copy to your attorney and she'll maintain them, and then you're golden.
You can, but you have to have passed Adobe Reader. You have to have Adobe Writer. It's a more expensive program. We have Adobe Writer through the state.
Yeah.
And I
So,
thought we already had DocuSign.
You had apparently a free account.
Okay.
So this gives you more, they call it envelopes.
that's worth the money,
Oh my gosh.
just for that record.
It is the
Right.
best risk management tool anybody has ever, it's a perfect paper trail. Even like I had employees that I had to, terminate or put on leave, and I sent them an offer. DocuSign tells me the date and the time they viewed the thing. It says, so-and-so reviewed your document at 2:43 PM. So no calling me and telling me I didn't get it, I didn't see it. No, you did. You opened it at 2:43 PM. Any questions?
Thank you. Not read, right?
All right.
Okay.
Then did you have a question? Sorry, Dr. Rhoda, did you
Anybody
have a
else have
question?
another question?
Oh, no,
He said
I did
that's
not.
all, yeah.
I had no
Okay.
question
Okay.
Okay.
I'll be glad to,
at this time.
as long as anybody wants to stay around, I'm in no hurry, but.
So the meeting is adjourned at 5:13.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you guys for spending the day.
If you want a Kindle version of that Champs thing, just send me an email.
Yeah, so I have the audiobook version on Kindle, like I played through my phone.
But I have to go.
So is it in the audiobook?
I have not put it into Audible.
Okay, that's the name of it.
Yeah, I've not put it into Audible, but but I did record it. So if you want to just play it as an MP3 file, I'll send you the
I can do it that way,
MP3 file.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this, and I have one more question.
Sure.
Do you adjunct?
It's all.
No, but I would be interested in the